So here we have dough that has been fully fermented. When we go through the processes of turning, what we call turning the bread, lining those glutens, building that up into a solid structure. When we're done with that, we put it in the refrigerator. And you don't have to. If you're in a hurry and you want to take and turn this in and just turn this into a loaf and proof it for a little while, you can do that and bake it off that night. But the fermentation process, the growth of that bacteria in that cooler environment, and the settling of the bread, the glutens continue to develop, and you get more elasticity out of the bread. But you'll see here, if you look closely, this that has been fermented overnight, made up yesterday, put in the refrigerator about 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon. You'll see it's trapping these little bubbles in here. It's a nice, solid piece of dough. And so what we do now with this is another little ingredient that you're going to want is some rice flour. And if you
because it won't.
It doesn't add any gluten. It doesn't interact with it. It'll just protect it in the bowl. And the other thing that it does when you have a nice clean bowl like this is that when you take it out, it's going to create pretty patterns on the loaf itself.
It will keep the dough from sticking in the bowl.
So there's disputes about how essential or what. When I do this, I'm much more careful than my trusty assistant is with it. I have and we have learned that this is not that necessary. When we've taken it out to fermentation, we'll take it out there when we're building those semi-ciabatta loaves that we'd use because they're more sliceable to serve in the restaurant. She takes that out, she stretches that down, she rolls that up, and we can show you how to do that as well if you don't want to work with the bowls. But when I'm working with the bowl, I take and I stretch that one side, stretch that out. See how I'm stretching, I'm creating that tension in that without tearing that there. I'm stretching it out here, and I'm stretching it out here. Folding those things over, and then I roll that over. Now, when I met Janet, she'd been on the divorce diet and really didn't have an ass to speak of at all. And so there were little shovel spades there where her butt was supposed to be. And then after about 10 years, she blossomed into this fully formed woman. And so I know that it correlates. I don't think that it's causal, but it could be. But that's about the same time that I developed my affection for making bread. Isn't that lovely? I can tell you that when I make a loaf of bread, it's made with love, if you know what I'm saying. So you see here now, as I stretch that out, there's got those nice little bubbles on it. I'll take and I've done this spin and pinch that in there, which is sealing it on the bottom. I take that little puppy and I put it in that bowl.
Upside down.
Upside down, because I've got that nice form. If Janet did this, that would be nicer right there. She seals that better than I do. But that's all in your motion. You get that. It'll be fine. I put a napkin over it. And now when I've taken that fermented dough out of the refrigerator, I'll usually take it out in the batch and just kind of let it sit warm up for an hour or two. So this is the proofing stage, which is only kind of important. But I would now, in making it with this process, with that, I'd set that aside for a couple of hours before I baked it. And we'll show you that process later. There we go. Okay, we've come back with this final stage. We have we left off forming the loaf. We just did one loaf. This was a batch that was started this morning.
Yesterday.
This was a batch that was started yesterday. So it had been fermenting all night in the refrigerator. You saw us form that loaf and put in proofing. If you look up closely at it, there you'll see that it's got, see how those glutens have created that elasticity, that's trapping that gas. We love gas, don't we, honey? So I'm going to have my faithful assistant do the scoring of this.
He should also mention this. He had this in the oven, so
this pan is at 500 degrees. You preheat the oven to 500 degrees. You put the pan in it for long enough to get the pan pretty stinking hot, like 500 degrees. And then we're gonna.
Do you want me to put the loaves directly in there and then score it?
Yeah.
All right, here it goes.
All right.
Just gonna.
Plop that puppy in there. Woo, bake the bowl. And look how pretty that is. See how that's got those rings, and that rice flour has allowed it to it'll show those marks.
How do you want to score it?
I want you to score it artistically, like you want to score it.
I haven't scored these in a while.
Oh, what do you have this? You would develop your own scoring techniques.
And you just score it. It allows the inside to be cooked. It allows an area for the steam to be released as it's cooking, and
allows it to stretch without constraining itself. It'll allow that to expand.
So that's it.
That's it. Now we're going to put this lid on, and we're going to cook it
For 10 minutes.
At 500 degrees. Now and that's going to steam that, and then I'm going to take that, and then I'm going to take the lid off. And I don't know, we haven't cooked these for, but it'll be 40 minutes or so.
It'll cook quicker in this pan because this pan will retain so much heat, as opposed to if I.
Oh, that's heavy. My faithful assistant usually carries the other end of these pans.
I'll be right back.
All right, I don't know where we were.
Here we are. We wrapped it up. We cooked it for 10 minutes with the lid on after preheating the pan to 500 degrees. This loaf was cooked for 35 minutes in the oven. Pan's hot. Loaf comes right out. You too can do this at home. Ta-da!